This video is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one website building platform. Fyodor Dostoevsky's The Brothers Karamazov has earned its place among the giants of world literature as one of those books that have the potential to completely change your life. The novel asks questions such as, does God exist? Is a morality without God even possible? And can a vegetable save your soul from eternal damnation? Allow me to explain. There is a famous scene in the novel where Grushenka, a bit of a femme fatale and a seductress, tells of a story she once heard about a wicked peasant woman. It's a parable, and along with the more famous Grand Inquisitor story within a story, it's in my opinion one of the highlights of the book. I still remember where exactly I was when I first read it when I was 18 years old and trying to find my place in the world. If you're in a similar position now, I highly recommend you pick up the book. Rest assured that this video will be spoiler-free in any case. With that said, let's dive into the universe of the brothers Karamazov and take a closer look at a touching parable involving hell and a vegetable. But first, I want to briefly mention Squarespace, the sponsor of today's video. Squarespace is your all-in-one platform to create a beautiful website. Doesn't matter if you're looking to create your own portfolio for a personal project or if you have to build a website for a client or something. Squarespace has you covered. I've been experimenting with it and I really like how they handled the integration of video content. Your website can be as simple as a place to host and arrange some videos, like the exclusive videos we made that aren't on YouTube that you can see right here. Their fluid engine makes designing your website a seamless experience. Just drag and drop. I created this video page in just a few seconds because they have so many pre-made templates available. It's just that easy. Check out squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Veldgeist to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Back to Dostoevsky. Now, without further ado, here is the story. The peasant woman died and did not leave a single good deed behind. The devils caught her and plunged her into the lake of fire. So her guardian angel stood and wondered what good deed of hers he could remember to tell God. She once pulled up an onion in her garden, said he, and gave it to a beggar woman. And God answered, "You take that onion then, hold it out to her in the lake, and let her take hold and be pulled out. And if you can pull her out of the lake, let her come to paradise. But if the onion breaks, then the woman must stay where she is." The angel ran to the woman and held out the onion to her. "Come," said he, "catch hold and I'll pull you out." And he began cautiously pulling her out. He had just pulled her right out when the other sinners in the lake, seeing how she was being drawn out, began catching hold of her so as to be pulled out with her. But she was a very wicked woman and she began kicking them. "I'm to be pulled out, not you. It's my onion, not yours." Immediately after saying this, the onion broke, and the woman fell into the lake, and she is burning there to this day. So the angel wept and went away. So goes the parable. Apparently, Dostoevsky heard it from a real peasant woman, and he was so touched by it that he included it in his book. But what does it mean? The nature of a parable means that it's open to interpretation. Here's mine. I see 3 lessons to the story. 1. God is merciful. We learn that the woman is so extremely wicked that in all her life she has never done a good deed, except for one time when she gave a beggar an onion. For an entire lifetime, that's hardly a good resume. Yet, for God, that's enough. God is willing to give her a chance. God is merciful, and God gives us flawed humans plenty of chances, perhaps more than we deserve. But we'll get to that. It reminds me of another monumental piece of art, the opera Don Giovanni by Mozart, with a libretto by Lorenzo da Ponte. Based on the Spanish legend of Don Juan, the unrepentant libertine and womanizer, the opera reaches its climax when Il Commendatore, a statue come to life, comes to tell Don Giovanni his time on earth is up, and he will be dragged to hell to be punished for his misdeeds and rakish lifestyle. The statue grabs Don Giovanni's hand and tells him, "Repent, change your ways, for this is your last hour." Don Giovanni says, "No." The statue asks again, Don Giovanni says no once more. A back and forth between the statue and Don Giovanni ensues. Ultimately, the statue gives Don Giovanni 7 chances to repent and to save himself from eternal hellfire. But Don Giovanni, steadfast in his convictions, refuses this grace every single time. Ultimately, he is dragged down to hell. The depiction of God in these 2 stories is identical. God is merciful. He gives plenty of chances to sinners to repent, to mend their ways, and to attain salvation. God does not want someone to suffer. He always offers a way out. Of course, the stories do not end there. In both stories, the sinner in question refuses God's grace. Don Giovanni does so because he is proud. He lived an authentic life, true to himself and to his desires. And in his pride, he puts himself above God and rejects the possibility of salvation because doing so would require him to betray himself, and he is simply not willing to do so. Hence, he is dragged to hell. The woman in Dostoevsky's parable, well, that's a different story. We come to the second lesson. 2. Humans are evil. Dostoevsky doesn't have a high opinion of mankind in general. When presented with God's infinite goodness and grace, we reject it. We are flawed, egotistical creatures, often to our own detriment. The woman is extended an olive branch, but in her egoism, she ruins her only chance at salvation. As the other sinners clamp onto her, trying to be saved as well, she kicks them down again. It's her onion, her second chance, not theirs. In the struggle, the onion breaks, and everyone is dragged down to hell. The onion represents her chance to redeem herself, but the onion, the sole good deed of her life, appeared to be a fluke. As altruistic as it may have seemed to give the poor beggar an onion, it turned out that, fundamentally, the woman was still as egotistical as she always was. She pushes down the other sinners, and so she seals her own doom. The episode with the onion proves that her good deed had the potential to save her, but she chose egoism and pride instead. It's important that she kicks down the other sinners. It shows that she had a choice in the matter. Because the alternative brings me to the third and final lesson that I see in this story. 3. There is always hope. If the woman had not kicked down the other sinners, all would have been saved. The woman and the clasping sinners alike would have been pulled out of the lake of fire. At least, that's one implication we can make from the story. I like to imagine some future episode where a similar thing happens again, where another wicked sinner is offered a chance at redemption, but this time he actually takes it and allows the sinners of hell to hold tight and be pulled out with him. Maybe even the woman of the onion could be among them. One good deed can be enough to save all mankind. Perhaps that is the true lesson of this parable. One good deed can redeem us. If only we look past our innate human egoism and we embrace God's mercy. Dostoevsky is fundamentally a Christian writer. As such, he must always keep hope. The central tenet in Christianity is that Jesus Christ sacrificed himself for the sins of mankind, and that through Christ, redemption is possible. Ultimately, Christianity is a religion of hope, and Dostoevsky understood this. Yet, he was also obviously tortured by the sorry state of mankind. Another touching scene in The Brothers Karamazov has Ivan Karamazov tell about the unique capacity for humans to be cruel. Not just cruel in the way that nature is cruel when a wolf eats a rabbit, but artistically cruel. Cruel in the way that only humans can be. He talks about war crimes committed by invading armies and how the atrocities they commit don't just stop at murder. It's murder with theatrics, calculated to be as traumatizing and disturbing as possible. Only humans, says Ivan, says Dostoevsky, can be this cruel. And yet, for all their flaws and wickedness, for all their sins and crimes, for all their cruelty undeserving of redemption, there is redemption nevertheless. Perhaps Dostoevsky, who knew firsthand the wretchedness of which humans are capable, was the psychologist who was most in need of the belief of this all-encompassing redemption granted by a merciful God. Perhaps only then can we try and make sense of the world, by clinging to the hope that all is not lost, and perhaps such a hope is worth more than even the truth. If someone proved to me that Christ is outside the truth, and that in reality the truth were outside of Christ, then I should prefer to remain with Christ rather than with the truth. Perhaps that was the only way for him to find solace in such a world, that despite all the suffering and pain, there comes, at the end, to those willing to embrace it, a final rest, a final hope, an outstretched hand holding an onion. Thank you for watching.